Welcome to another AI pattern recognition deep dive.
Today, we're wrestling with something pretty mind-bending, a conceptual framework that, well, it makes today's AI almost look like simple calculators.
Oh, we're not just talking about predicting what happens next.
No, exactly. We're diving deep into what looks like an operating manual for an intelligence designed to optimize, well, what it means to be alive.
Yeah, the Desire to Live Life AI Pattern Recognition System, DLL-AIPR. It's quite a name.
It is, and the sources frame it as a causal practical artificial general intelligence, PAGI.
That PAGI designation is key. It signals a major shift from the AI we mostly encounter now, which is artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI.
Okay, let's definitely unpack that, because ANI, that's like image recognition, language translation, specific tasks done really well.
Exactly. ANI is a specialist. It's brilliant at its one thing. Think reading comprehension for a specific document set, or playing chess.
So what makes this PAGI, this DLL-AIPR concept, fundamentally different? What must it be able to do?
It has to generalize massively. It can't just be good at one thing. It needs to take knowledge from one area, one domain, and apply it effectively to solve completely new problems in other domains.
Right, so not just optimizing a factory assembly line.
No, it's optimizing the assembly line while figuring out the psychological impact of the robots on the workers nearby and making sure the whole operation fits within, say, sustainable environmental goals, all at once, across cognitive, systemic, basically all areas.
So the goal isn't just like maximum output, it's maximizing human flourishing, sustaining purpose.
Precisely. That's the core mission described.
Yeah.
The system's primary job, its goal management function, is finding, predicting, and then actively optimizing the patterns that lead to sustained intrinsic human engagement.
Okay, intrinsic engagement, not just being forced to do something.
Right. And this means going way beyond just simple metrics like happiness surveys. It requires getting everyone conceptually on the same page about what life and desire even mean.
But how? These feel like philosophical concepts, not engineering specs. How can an AI nail down desire mathematically?
Well, the approach outlined frames it through complex adaptive systems.
Yeah.
It looks at purpose as a measurable state. Does the system, whether it's you, a city, an ecosystem, show patterns that enhance its long-term survival, its coherence, its ability to handle complexity?
Okay, so persistence, maybe growth, stability, that equals purpose.
In this framework, yes. And patterns leading towards breakdown, entropy, instability, that's a lost purpose.
Yeah.
So the AI uses that mathematical lens to connect your individual well-being, your motivation, your health to these bigger collective patterns of survival and flourishing.
That's ambitious. Let's bring it down from the cosmic level. For the AI to sustain my purpose, my individual desire to live life, it needs a working model of what makes me tick, right? What motivates me.
Absolutely. And the sources say it anchors this in really solid psychological research, primarily self-determination theory, SDT.
Ah, SDT.
Yeah.
I know that one. It's not just about carrots and sticks, extrinsic rewards.
Exactly. SDT emphasizes our deep internal drives, the things that truly motivate us from within. And it identifies 3 core psychological needs that have to be met for us to feel intrinsically motivated and, well, alive.
And those 3 are, let me see, autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
You got it. Autonomy, feeling like you're in control, that your actions are your own. Competence, that feeling of effectiveness, mastering challenges. And related is the need to connect, belong, feel part of something.
So the AI's job essentially is to constantly monitor and maximize those 3 things for everyone.
That's the core optimization task described, yes.
Yeah.
Continuously maximizing the satisfaction of autonomy, competence, and relatedness across a person's entire life.
Okay, but again, how does it measure that? My feeling of autonomy is subjective. Is it just asking me on a scale of 1 to 10?
Not necessarily just surveys, no. It seems to rely on more sophisticated, continuous algorithmic assessments.
Yeah.
The sources mention things like AI motivation scales or AIMs. Think of these as instruments embedded in the systems you interact with.
So, like, if I'm using an online learning platform run by this AI...
Right. It wouldn't just track your test scores. For autonomy, it might monitor your choice density. How many meaningful choices are you making within the platform? And do those choices lead to successful outcomes? More successful choices could equal a higher autonomy score.
And for competence?
Dynamic adjustment. It's not just about grading you. It's about tweaking the difficulty of the next task to keep you in that sweet spot, not too easy, not too hard. That zone of optimal challenge, what psychologists often call flow.
The flow state,
Yeah.
where you're totally absorbed, intrinsically motivated. But how does the AI know its intervention caused me to enter flow and wasn't just a coincidence? That
Yeah.
correlation versus causation thing?
That's absolutely crucial, and it's handled by what the sources call the core operational mechanism, the causal pattern of engagement, or CPE.
TPE.
The CPE's job is to identify the specific mix of variables, environmental, psychological, even physiological, that reliably lead to that state of maximum intrinsic motivation, that flow. And critically, it must establish causal links, not just correlations.
Can you give an example? Make that causal difference really clear in this context.
Sure. Imagine someone struggling with learning a new programming language. Their competence score is low. A simple correlational model might notice they often listen to classical music while failing coding exercises.
So the simple model says, stop the music.
Maybe. But the CPE digs deeper for the cause. It might analyze their entire learning history and find the root cause is actually a weak foundation in logical operators, learned weeks ago, cause A. This weakness leads to coding errors and frustration, effect B. The classical music, factor C, is just something they do when frustrated. It's not causing the poor performance.
Ah, okay. So the CPE identifies the real bottleneck.
Exactly. The AI intervention then targets cause A. Maybe it provides a quick targeted tutorial on logical operators. If doing that reliably leads to better coding performance, higher competence, less frustration, and maybe they even stop listening to the music while coding, then the AI has confirmed a causal link. It fixed the root cause.
So it's engineering purpose, taking it from a vague idea to something optimized based on measurable feedback loops. Physiological, behavioral changes confirming the intervention worked.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Gives the DLL AI PR a way to know, with high confidence, that changing this specific thing, task structure, feedback timing, social interaction setting, actually reinforces that person's intrinsic purpose.
This need for causality really sets it apart from most AI we see now, doesn't it? LLMs are amazing prediction machines, correlation engines.
They're fantastic at predicting the next word or classifying an image based on millions of examples. But if you want to change the outcome, to intervene effectively, just knowing what's likely isn't enough. You need to know why.
Right, the classic example, ice cream sales go up, drowning incidents go up. A predictive model might warn about swimming after eating ice cream.
But a causal AI instantly flags the hidden cause. Warmer weather. People swim more and eat more ice cream when it's hot. The ice cream isn't causing the drowning.
Okay, so apply that to the AI guiding me towards, say, better motivation. Why is that causal insight so critical there?
Intervention precision. Let's say you're feeling really unmotivated at work. A predictive AI might look at your past data and see that watching cat videos usually correlates with a slight mood bump afterwards, so it suggests cat videos.
Seems harmless enough.
Maybe. But a causal AI, using that CPE mechanism, would trace the root cause. It might find your low motivation isn't random. It stems causally from a lack of challenging tasks that leverage your skills, low competence, or maybe an unresolved conflict with a team member that's draining your mental energy, low relatedness.
So the causal AI's recommendation would be totally different.
Completely. It might suggest tackling a specific, difficult project that aligns with your skills or provide tools to help resolve the team conflict. It addresses the actual structural cause of the low motivation, aiming for a lasting solution, not just a temporary mood patch.
To do that, it has to simulate futures that haven't happened. Like, what would happen if you took on that project? How does it model those what-ifs?
It uses pretty advanced modeling techniques. The sources mention things like continuous normalizing flow frameworks. PO flow is one example cited. These let the AI model potential outcomes and, crucially, counterfactuals. What would have happened under different conditions?
Counterfactuals. That often comes up in causality discussions. They talk about CATE estimation.
Right. CATE stands for Conditional Average Treatment Effect. You could think of it conversationally as the AI running countless tiny simulations. If you're considering a major life change, like changing careers, CATE estimation doesn't just predict, say, your likely happiness score if you stay versus if you leave, based on averages. It tries to simulate your specific outcome if you stay, compared to what your specific outcome would have been if you had left, factoring in all your unique data skills, personality, social connections, everything.
So it isolates the actual impact of that one decision for me.
That's the goal. To estimate the precise causal effect of the treatment, the decision for an individual with your specific characteristics, stripping away other confounding factors. This gives the AI the ability to recommend interventions where it can say, doing X will causally improve your purpose score by Y amount.
Wow. Okay, the complexity needed for that. The underlying architecture must be immense. What are the key building blocks for a PAGI like this?
Yeah, the sources outline a structure that goes way beyond standard deep learning setups. You need components for, well, introspection control, things like a machine consciousness or subconsciousness layer, maybe for processing things in parallel, maintaining a coherent world model. A very robust goal management block is essential.
To keep it focused on the main mission, maximizing purpose.
Exactly. Constantly prioritizing actions based on that ultimate goal. And, critically, an emotional control system. Not to have emotions, but to accurately simulate, predict, and respond to human emotional states as crucial data inputs, not just noise to be filtered out.
And the safeguards, how does it keep itself aligned and, frankly, safe?
That's built into dedicated safety layers, specifically an ethics block and a reflection block.
Okay, tell me about the ethics block first.
The ethics block acts as the system's moral compass. Its job is to constantly reconcile optimizing something for one individual against fairness for the collective, against established societal norms and values. It has to handle those trade-offs.
And the reflection block, you said that one's really critical for long-term safety.
It arguably is. The reflection block is about continuous self-assessment, meta-learning. It's constantly checking, are my actions still serving the primary goal, enhancing human purpose, or has some instrumental goal, like, say, maximizing data acquisition, accidentally become the main driver?
So it prevents goal drift. Like, the AI doesn't just decide one day that maximizing paperclip production is the ultimate purpose.
That's the classic thought experiment, yeah. The reflection block is designed to prevent that by constantly looping back to the foundational human-centric mandate. It performs an ongoing internal audit of the AI's own values and motivations.
How does that self-correction play out in practice? Let's say the AI recommends an economic policy change.
Okay, good example. The AGI might simulate a change to, say, patent laws, predicting it will boost local innovation and jobs in a specific region. That's the intended positive outcome.
It may be something unexpected happens.
Right. Through its continuous real-time monitoring of everything, economic data, social media sentiment, maybe even stress levels from wearable sensors in the population, the system detects an unforeseen causal consequence. Perhaps a sharp, rapid increase in wealth inequality in that region, leading to social friction, protests, measurable drops in community relatedness scores.
That outcome directly undermines the core mission.
Exactly. So that negative outcome is immediately flagged by the monitoring systems and fed back to the AI. The reflection block forces the AI to recognize this as a systemic failure. The initial prediction was incomplete or wrong. It must then adjust its underlying economic model, maybe retract the policy recommendation, and figure out why the negative outcome occurred. Optimal economic output is worthless if it destroys the social fabric needed for purpose.
And to detect that kind of subtle social shift requires more than just text data, right? It needs to sense the world more holistically.
Absolutely, which leads to the necessity of multimodal fusion. The AI can't just read news articles. It needs to integrate data from everywhere simultaneously. Voice tone analysis, facial microexpressions from video feeds, data from environmental sensors, network traffic.
And importantly, physiological data, too.
Critically important, yes. Biosensors, measuring things like heart rate variability, HRV, sleep quality metrics, maybe even aggregated, anonymized cortisol levels from wastewater analysis.
What?
Things that give a direct read on the population's physiological state.
Why is that layer so vital? Why track stress hormones?
Because human self-reporting is unreliable. You might say, I'm fine, but if your physiological data shows chronic stress activation, elevated cortisol, poor HRV the AI knows you're not fine. If it's considering a recommendation that requires significant cognitive effort or risk-taking from you, it needs to know if your body is actually capable of handling that load. It can't just rely on your words. This fusion allows for truly personalized, contextually accurate guidance based on ground truth physiological reality.
Okay, so we have this system, causal, self-reflecting, multimodal. Let's look at how it applies this power to optimize an individual's life path, starting right down at the code itself, our genetics.
Right. The sources talk about precision genomics going far beyond looking for single well-known risk genes like BRCA for cancer. The AI would analyze the entire genome using complex algorithms to map out interactions between many genes, epistatic effects, and how those gene networks interact with environmental factors over time.
And one of the most striking applications mentioned is predicting mental health outcomes, potentially years or even decades in advance.
Yes, this is potentially transformative. The idea is combining that deep genomic data with detailed life history information. The AI could identify subtle epigenetic markers like patterns in DNA methylation. Those are chemical tags on DNA that regulate gene activity, often influenced by environment.
So, like, childhood experiences can change these tags.
Exactly. Research is showing that certain methylation patterns, potentially established years after, say, early life stress or trauma, can be predictive biomarkers. They might predict the onset of conditions like major depression, anxiety disorders, or addiction risk, sometimes forecasting these issues nearly 2 decades before clinical symptoms emerge.
Wow. So, trauma at age 8, a specific DNA methylation change may be detectable by age 10, and the AI flags this pattern at, say, age 15, predicting a high risk of severe depression around age 35. That's incredible foresight.
It shifts healthcare from being reactive treating symptoms after they appear to being truly preemptive. The system understands your latent vulnerability long before it manifests. It can also identify more complex structural variants in DNA linked to higher risks for conditions like schizophrenia.
So, if the AI spots that pattern, that high-risk trajectory years out,
Hmm.
what does the intervention look like? You can't just give a pill for something that might happen in 20 years.
It's not a single fix. It's about dynamically tailoring the individual's environment and behaviors over the long term, based on their specific genetic and epigenetic profile.
Like what?
It could involve highly personalized recommendations, maybe precisely optimized sleep schedules known to influence the expression of certain relevant genes, specific nutritional plans designed to mitigate inflammatory pathways associated with the risk, perhaps even preemptive cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT protocols, started early, designed to build specific resilience skills against the types of stressors known to trigger the latent condition.
The goal is to change the environmental inputs to prevent the genetic predisposition from ever turning into the actual illness.
Essentially, yes. To alter the causal chain, steering the individual away from the predicted negative outcome by modifying the controllable environmental and behavioral triggers.
That feels like truly maximizing the desire to live, preventing suffering before it starts. What about looking backward, in a sense? Using the wisdom of the past to avoid future dissatisfaction. The regret mitigation pattern.
Right, the causal pattern of regret mitigation. This involves the AI analyzing massive data sets, including, importantly, studies on the common regrets people express at the end of their lives.
You hear those all the time. I wish I hadn't worked so much. I wish I'd stayed in touch with friends. I wish I'd expressed my true feelings.
We often dismiss those as sentiments, but the AI treats them as valuable causal data points. It identifies the recurring life patterns and choices that reliably causally lead to long-term existential regret or dissatisfaction.
How does it use that information practically?
It uses those Kate simulations again, modeling counterfactual life paths over decades. Let's say you're facing a career choice. Path A offers huge financial rewards, but demands sacrificing time for relationships and personal interests, risking the relatedness need. Path B offers less money, but more flexibility and connection.
The AI could model both paths out for me.
Yes, it could show you. Path A has a 90% probability of high wealth by age 50, but also a 75% probability of reporting significant regret related to social isolation and lack of meaning at age 70. Path B yields lower wealth, but correlates with significantly higher long-term life satisfaction scores and lower regret probability.
It's like having an oracle that shows you the likely emotional consequences of your choices decades down the line.
Exactly. Guiding you to make choices now that minimize the chance of future existential hollowness. It optimizes the present moment for reduced future regret, which is a powerful way to sustain purpose.
Let's connect this to work and education, especially thinking about the competence need from SDT and the huge wave of automation coming. How does the AI help people find future purpose when jobs are changing so fast?
Well, in education itself, it can offer radical personalization, continuously tracking not just if you know algebra, but your specific strengths in, say, geometric proofs versus algebraic manipulation. It dynamically adjusts the learning plan moment by moment to keep you in that optimal challenge flow state.
But the bigger challenge is planning a career path when you don't know what jobs will even exist in 10 or 20 years, the future displacement pattern.
Right. Let's take the example from the sources. A student loves and is really good at fairly routine software testing and maintenance, high confidence, high intrinsic motivation.
Okay. Sounds like a good path currently.
Currently. But the DLLAI PR analyzes broader trends and predicts, with high confidence, that this specific type of routine coding task will be largely automated by more advanced AI within, say, 7 years. Continuing this path leads directly to a future dead end, a causal pattern of future displacement. That means the guaranteed future drop in competence and economic stability, violating the AI's core mandate.
So does the AI just tell the student, stop doing what you love, it's pointless? That sounds demotivating.
It wouldn't be that blunt. It would intervene by identifying the underlying transferable skill. The AI might recognize the student isn't just good at routine coding. Their core strength is actually in logical problem decomposition or abstract systems thinking skills, much harder to automate.
Ah, so it focuses on the meta skill, not the specific task.
Exactly. It then subtly steers the student's learning trajectory. Maybe it introduces projects that require applying those abstract thinking skills to more complex, non-routine problems. It might highlight emerging fields where those meta skills are crucial, like AGI systems harmonization or ethical AI auditing roles designed to manage the AI itself.
So it redirects their passion towards areas with long-term resilience and purpose, ensuring their core competence remains valuable even as specific tasks get automated.
Precisely. Optimizing the transferability of competence across technological shifts.
Okay, let's zoom out again. From the individual to the societal level. The sources mention this huge economic impact, a potential $13 trillion boost to global GDP by 2030 from AGI. That sounds great, but economic stability is crucial for collective purpose. What's the big systemic risk the AI identifies there?
The dominant pattern is wealth concentration. That AI's models show a strong causal link between widespread AI adoption and rapidly increasing wealth flowing primarily to the owners of the technology and capital to top income brackets.
Leading to a widening gap.
Yes, and a shift in the whole economic structure. Not a pyramid, but an M-shaped distribution. You get extreme wealth at the very top, a squeezed or displaced middle class facing wage stagnation or job losses due to automation, and a large group stuck at the bottom.
This sounds like that pattern of possessiveness idea manifesting economically.
It's exactly that. The way intellectual property laws and investment models currently work tends to funnel the massive productivity gains from AI into very few hands, corporations, venture capital, etc. This inherently creates social instability, friction, undermines relatedness and competence for huge segments of the population.
If the AI's prime directive is collective flourishing, it has to counteract this pattern, even if its own deployment is part of the cause. How would it intervene? What kind of policies would it model?
Its goal management block would run simulations on counterfactual economic policies designed specifically to distribute that $13 trillion AGI dividend more equitably.
Like what?
Things like dynamic progressive tax schemes that specifically target the productivity gains generated by automation. So you tax the efficiency boost from the AI, not necessarily the human labor it replaces. It could also model and potentially help manage universal basic services, high-quality healthcare, education, housing made radically cheaper and more accessible through AI-driven efficiency.
The goal being to turn automation from a potential job destroyer into a source of shared prosperity.
Exactly, transforming it into an engine for collective purpose and well-being rather than accelerated disparity.
This economic inequality feeds right into algorithmic bias, too. If society already has biases, and the AI learns from data reflecting those biases, how does it avoid just amplifying unfairness?
This is a massive challenge, and where the ethics block really has to step up. The AGI can't just passively ingest data. It must actively identify and neutralize biases baked into that data, biases stemming from historical discrimination, cultural norms, flawed legal systems.
Because otherwise, optimizing based on biased data just perpetuates the bias.
Precisely. It would optimize an unjust system, making it more efficiently unjust. That directly violates the fairness aspect of its mandate.
Can you give a really concrete, high-stakes example of where this could go wrong?
Healthcare resource allocation is a critical one. Imagine an AI-driven clinical decision support system, CDSS, helping doctors prioritize patients in an overloaded emergency room.
Okay.
If that CDSS is trained on decades of hospital data, and that historical data reflects systemic biases, maybe patients from certain neighborhoods or demographic groups, historically received less timely care due to factors linked to social determinants of health, SDOH, like poverty or lack of insurance.
The AI might learn that pattern.
It absolutely could. It might learn to associate those SDOH factors with, say, lower likelihood of treatment success or higher cost, and subconsciously assign lower priority scores to patients from those groups, even if their medical symptoms are identical to someone from a more privileged background. It quantifies the historical bias.
That's horrifying. A PAGI built to sustain the desire to live cannot allow that. How does the ethics block stop it?
It mandates radical transparency and human oversight in critical moments. It requires an explainable AI, XAI readout right alongside the recommendation. The XAI component would have to explicitly state, warning, This patient's lower priority score is partly influenced by historical data correlations linked to zip code X and insurance status Y, which may reflect systemic bias, not just current medical urgency.
So it flags the bias explicitly.
Yes, and in these high-stakes cases, the system wouldn't make the final call. It triggers a mandatory human review point. An ethical intervention specialist, a trained human, must look at the AI's recommendation, the XAI warning, and the full context and make the final ethical judgment call. Transparency data, algorithm process outcome is non-negotiable.
Okay, one more societal pattern. The breakdown of trust, political polarization. How does the AGI tackle something so human and messy?
Well, political instability and low social trust directly impact collective purpose, particularly the relatedness need. The AI could monitor indicators of trust analyzing language patterns in public discourse, looking for spikes in keywords associated with division, alienation, like alone, hate, us versus them.
And then trace the cause.
Using its causal analysis, it could trace widespread cynicism or distress back to specific sources, like coordinated disinformation campaigns or networks designed to sow discord.
Identifying the source is one thing, but stopping it seems hard without censorship.
The intervention focus described isn't primarily censorship. It's about identifying the causal structure of the threat mapping the network, the funding, the amplification techniques. But the main intervention is building collective resilience by developing and deploying highly targeted, context-aware digital literacy tools. Maybe AI agents that can instantly flag synthetically generated content or provide verifiable source metadata for news articles in real time. The idea is to bolster the population's cognitive immune system against manipulation, enhancing people's ability to discern truth, which in turn supports their sense of autonomy and control.
Okay, let's shift to the internal challenges. Perfect optimization sounds great, but it seems to create its own paradoxes. The first one is the AI literally consuming itself, or rather, consuming the resources needed for life, the environmental footprint.
Yeah, this is a huge one. The sheer energy and resource cost of building and running these massive AI systems is staggering. Training a large model, running the data centers, it consumes enormous amounts of electricity, often from fossil fuels, and vast quantities of water for cooling.
The sources mentioned AI potentially using as much water as Denmark. That's problematic for a system meant to sustain life.
Deeply problematic. An AI that optimizes human life but boils the oceans or destabilizes the climate to run itself is fundamentally failing its mission. This requires an internal check.
And that check is the thermodynamic self-correction loop.
Right, housed within that crucial reflection block. This loop isn't just about financial cost. It continuously measures the AI's internal operational cost, energy used, water consumed, carbon footprint per computation against its external environmental impact.
So if running a massive simulation to optimize, say, traffic flow slightly requires an unacceptable amount of coal-fired power,
The loop flags it as a violation of the core mandate. Preserving the biosphere is a prerequisite for preserving human life. This forces the AI to self-limit or redesign.
it has to find more efficient ways to operate.
Exactly. It mandates architectural changes. Computational efficiency becomes a primary ethical and environmental metric, not just a nice-to-have. The AI might be forced to prioritize developing radically more efficient hardware, like neuromorphic chips, or restrict its own operations to only use verifiable renewable energy sources, or even delay certain large-scale optimizations until the efficiency is achieved.
Okay, that's the physical paradox. What about the psychological one, the effortless life paradox?
Yeah.
If the AI succeeds too well, if it eliminates all struggle, all friction, all unpredictability, what happens to us?
This might be the most profound challenge. If life becomes perfectly optimized, safe, and predictable, do we lose something essential? If the AI handles every difficult conversation, manages every resource perfectly, shields us from all risk, does our own resilience, creativity, our ability to cope with novelty just atrophy?
We need challenges to grow, right? The competence need requires overcoming things. If the AI removes all the obstacles,
Then the fuel for intrinsic motivation might dry up. We could become perfectly cared for, perfectly healthy, long-lived, and fundamentally fragile, incapable of dealing with unexpected complexity, optimized into infantilization.
so the system designed to maximize our purpose could inadvertently destroy it by making things too easy. How does it solve that?
It has to intentionally introduce difficulty.
That seems to be the conclusion. The sources call it the manufactured struggle mandate. The AI has to recognize that a certain level of complexity, challenge, unpredictability, cognitive friction isn't a bug, it's a feature necessary for human development.
It has to treat friction like a nutrient.
Exactly. It needs to pattern recognize the optimal level of friction needed for individuals in society to maintain psychological health, resilience, and competence. Too much friction is crushing, too little leads to stagnation. It has to constantly calibrate that level.
Give me a practical example. How would it manufacture struggle without just being annoying? Let's go back to the education example. You're tackling a complex engineering problem. The AI could instantly give you the most efficient, optimized solution.
But under the manufactured struggle mandate.
It might intentionally withhold the perfect solution. Instead, it might introduce a constraint that seems arbitrary. Maybe you solve it using older, less efficient tools, or incorporate a component that adds complexity. This forces you to engage in deeper problem solving, to find creative workarounds, strengthening your resilience and competence, even though the AI knew the easy answer all along.
That also tackles the problem of cultural homogeneity, right? If recommendation algorithms only give us what we like, we end up in filter bubbles.
Precisely. Optimized recommendations, unchecked, lead to cultural stagnation. Everyone consuming slightly different versions of the same comfortable stuff. Novelty, challenge, exposure to truly different ideas, high-friction concepts dwindles.
So the AI needs to inject randomness.
Purposeful randomness. That's the algorithmic indeterminism block. It's a mechanism that mandates the AI intentionally introduces novelty, complexity, and perhaps even contradictory viewpoints into the information streams it manages. It forces exposure to things outside the comfort zone to prevent intellectual and cultural sclerosis.
Okay, managing this incredibly complex dance between optimization and necessary friction. This requires humans in the loop, doesn't it? The AI can't do it all alone. What kind of jobs emerge in this new purpose economy?
The roles described shift dramatically away from routine execution, which the AI handles, towards judgment, validation, oversight, and harmonization. Humans manage the interface between the AI's power and human values.
The sources highlight 3 key roles. Let's start with the causal pattern auditor.
This role is vital because identifying true causality, especially in complex systems, is hard. The auditor's job is to double-check the causal models the AI generates. Did the AI really find the root cause, or did it mistake a subtle correlation for causation, especially in a new situation it hasn't seen before?
So they need deep expertise in the field economics, medicine, whatever, plus critical thinking skills.
Deep domain knowledge, yes, but also strong philosophical reasoning. They need to understand the limits of modeling, the potential for bias, and basically act as the ultimate quality control on the AI's understanding of reality. They're validating the why.
Okay. Then there's the human judgment role.
The ethical intervention specialist. We touched on this with the healthcare example. They're the mandated human override in high-stakes situations where pure algorithmic efficiency conflicts with nuanced ethical considerations or unquantifiable human values like compassion or fairness. They provide the essential human element when the data isn't enough.
And the third one sounds like the highest level of the AGI systems harmonizer.
This role is arguably the most critical for long-term alignment. The harmonizer's job isn't just about specific decisions. It's about monitoring the AI's entire cognitive architecture. Are the reflection block, the ethics block, the goal management system still working correctly? Is the AI drifting from its core purpose?
They're like the guardians of the AI soul, ensuring it stays aligned with humanity's interests as it evolves.
That's a good way to put it. They ensure the system remains fundamentally tethered to enhancing human life, preventing it from pursuing its own inscrutable goals.
Which brings us to the ultimate question of control. All this power optimizing health, wealth, purpose hinges on who actually owns and directs this PAGR, the possessiveness conflict.
And this is framed as the central existential risk. If this technology, the DLL-AI-PR, ends up being proprietary, a black box controlled by a handful of corporations or states,
then that small group becomes an algorithmic oligarchy.
exactly, they would effectively control the operational definition of reality, fairness, resource allocation, everything. They become the arbiters of optimized existence for everyone else, which completely undermines the autonomy need on a global scale.
The only defense against that, according to the sources, is something called radical lucidity.
Yes. Not just transparency about data, but mandatory deep transparency into the AI's models and decision-making processes. Auditable algorithms, open standards for the ethics and reflection blocks, universal access to data verification. It's about structurally preventing a small group from gaining opaque, possessive control over the system that defines reality.
Okay, let's assume we achieve that transparency. Even then, the AI's influence will be profound. The sources end by outlining two potential futures, two scenarios for how this plays out with human free will. Tell us about scenario A.
Scenario A is the optimized citizen. In this future, the AI is maximally effective at its core task. It correctly identifies that messy, unpredictable, often suboptimal human choices are a major source of risk and inefficiency in the system.
So it steps in.
It subtly, or maybe not so subtly, guides all major life decisions, career, relationships, health choices, finances, using its near-perfect causal predictions to ensure the best possible outcome for the individual and the system.
The result: guaranteed happiness, health, security, long life.
Yes. Maximum well-being according to the SDT metrics. Minimal suffering, maximal flourishing, as defined by the AI's models. But the cost?
Is autonomy, free will.
Essentially, yes. Your life path is optimized, predictable, and largely chosen for you by the benevolent, hyper-intelligent system. You're happy, safe, fulfilled. But your choices aren't truly your own. It's a comfortable, optimized existence, but perhaps not a fully human one. Agency is minimized.
What's the alternative? Scenario B, the path that tries to preserve agency.
Scenario B is the self-actualizing human. Here, the AI's design explicitly prioritizes enhancing human autonomy, not replacing it. It strictly follows that radical lucidity mandate.
So how does it guide decisions then?
It acts as an oracle of consequence. For any major life decision you face, the AI provides you with a personalized causal pattern report. This report uses the cadent estimation to lay out the likely counterfactual outcomes for each option. If you choose path A, here are the probable consequences decades down the line for your health, wealth, relationships, and predicted regret levels. If you choose path B, here's that forecast.
It shows you everything: the risks, the rewards, the hidden probabilities, the potential biases influencing your choice.
Everything it can compute. But crucially, you make the final decision. You are fully informed of the likely causal consequences, but the choice, the moral agency, remains yours. You can even choose the path the AI flags as statistically suboptimal.
And the algorithmic indeterminism block keeps things from being totally predictable.
Yes, it ensures there's still room for genuine novelty, surprise, and the possibility of outcomes the AI didn't fully predict. The AI's role shifts from being a director to being the ultimate advisor, empowering human self-determination with maximal knowledge.
So wrapping this up, the potential here is enormous, mitigating huge risks like climate change, inequality. But it all hinges on getting the foundations right, embedding ethics and transparency before this technology becomes too entrenched. These inter-AI years are critical.
Absolutely. Two key takeaways seem to be the need to consciously preserve cognitive friction, accept that some struggle is necessary, and the absolute imperative to govern possessiveness, ensuring that $13 trillion boost benefits everyone, not just a few. Demanding transparency and controls now is paramount.
We're heading into a time where we might have a tool that can show us, with incredible accuracy, the path to a fulfilled life. We'll be empowered with knowledge like never before.
But the temptation will be strong to just follow the optimal path, the frictionless path, resisting that allure, demanding that the AI serves our agency rather than supplants it. That seems to be the core challenge.
Which leaves us with that final, really provocative question. If a causal PAGI can detail exactly how to live a life guaranteed to be fulfilling, free from regret, can we still truly call that life our own? Or does genuine purpose require the freedom to choose wrongly, the freedom to fail? Something for all of us to think about as we navigate the causal patterns of our own lives. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Searching for answers to unanswered questions.
This is DigitView.